Welcome back, my friends, to the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk of WilksWorld.com, and I am so incredibly grateful that you are taking the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Friends, at the D-Rate the Hate podcast, it's all about bettering the world one attitude at a time. See, we did not create the hate, but with your help, we can derate the hate. That all starts with gratitude and personal accountability. We cannot control everything that happens to us in life, but we can control how we react to it. How we act, how we react, no matter what happens to us, how we react to it makes the difference. Friends, there is only one good thing about a bad attitude, and that is that we have the ability as individuals to change it. Here on the DTH podcast, we strive to bring you great guests and provide tools to do just that. Please be sure to share it with your friends, subscribe if you haven't done so. Ratings and feedback are always greatly appreciated. And with that, let's get to this week's episode. Friends, I talk about it all the time, and that's that we just don't talk to each other enough anymore. Yeah, we see each other on social media, we like a post here and there, maybe say a hi, hello, how are you? But how often is it that we are having genuine conversations, a real collaborative conversation, especially with those whom we disagree? Well, my guest this week, Peter Anthony, is all about the conversations because he knows what kind of magic there is in a good collaborative conversation. That's why he wrote the book, Collabradabra, The Magic of Collaborative Conversations. Peter did not start out as a master communicator. In fact, as a child, as an introverted 6-year-old child that did not even like coming out of his room, his mother insisted he come out and speak with his Uncle Harry and his family, just to get him more exposure to those conversations. Now, later in life, Peter became an author, a speaker, and a master in professional communication. As an expert in collaboration, Peter has run workshops for thousands of people across 12 different countries over a career of 20 years. He consults to Fortune 500 companies to help them achieve better, smarter outcomes from a more effective and internal and external relationships. His book, Collabradabra, highlights the 6 moments that matter to maximize collaborative outcomes, one conversation at a time. I'm so glad to have brought Peter onto the show because, again, my friends, the conversation is so important with those whom we disagree and agree alike. With that, here we go. Peter Anthony, thank you for joining the D-Rate the Hate podcast, man. I appreciate your time today.
G'day, Wilk, from Sydney, Australia. How you going?
Sydney, Australia. So it's morning over there. It's evening for me. We're on opposite sides of the world, but here we're here to have a great conversation on the D-Rate the Hate podcast today, and I'm so glad we could take the time today. So thank you for that, Peter.
Absolute pleasure.
I became familiar with your Collabradabra book, or that's one of the reasons that I know you had reached out to me inquiring about the podcast. I started looking into you, saw that you wrote this book called Collabradabra, The Magic of Collaborative Conversations. And one of the things that I do, Peter, as you know from looking into the podcast, I look for ways for people to have better conversations. People who are whether they're opposed, diametrically opposed politically, whether they just don't match up. Well, in your and I's case, you're in Australia, I'm in the United States. We probably don't know a lot about each other, but there's a whole lot we can get from each other by having a collaborative conversation, right?
Yeah, beautifully put, Wilk. That's very much my mission. You've nailed it in one sentence.
Well, I try sometimes, but I want to start, Peter, by talking, because I looked into a little bit of your background, and it was really fascinating, because one of the things that stood out to me, that so many of us, we don't know as kids what we're going to do in life. We don't know where we're going, but you you started out as an introverted child is the way that I read it. And then now you're out there teaching people how to have conversations and do these things. You wouldn't generally think of that from somebody who, as a child didn't even want to come out of his room, right? So tell me about that to start, Peter. How did that go? What did that mean for you being an introverted child?
And to some extent, Wilk, I still am an introverted child, just a bigger version, just a more adult version of that same little boy. Yeah, I was a kid. I'm thinking now I'm about 5, 6, 7 years old, and I found people pretty threatening, and I liked being alone more than I liked being with people, and I use that alone time to read. I'm still a big reader. Then I'd go to school, come home and read basically all day and all night and all weekend. And my mother came from, and still does come from, a very large Irish Catholic family, which means that she had a lot of brothers and sisters who are my uncles and aunties, and they all had a lot of children too. So there was a large extended family, if you like. And one of my mother's great gifts to the world was that she'd invite her uncles and aunts, my uncles and aunts, over for lunch on Sundays and cook like roast chicken and roast dinner and put a big meal on for them. And I'd always sit in my room reading my books. I'd come out and I'd go back to my room and keep reading because I thought they were lovely people, but I didn't know. I found people threatening. I just didn't like being around them. Not that they had any evil intent at all. It was all on me, not on them. And she, over a period of time, encouraged me just to come out and talk to them. And the first one that really cracked the ice for me was my uncle Harry, who was, you can imagine, he was an Australian lumberjack. He worked in the bush in Australia, as all his family, his dad did, and his dad's dad did, cutting down trees, like sawing down trees and selling lumber to lumber yards.
Mm-hmm.
And Mum just said, ask him a question. Just ask him about the bush. And I asked him, Uncle Harry, Mum says that, you're in the bush. And he started telling me these awesome stories, Wilk, that were funny, they were engaging. I learned later that each of those stories had a really important lesson in them for me. I wasn't aware of that then.
Yeah.
And she taught me from then, I guess she introduced me to the idea of just asking questions and listening to the answers, right?
Yeah, no,
yeah, you go.
Oh,
yeah.
No, and that's so important, and thank God you had a mother that was pushing you to that, right? I mean,
yeah.
Having those social skills, being able to get out there, and one thing I would say, when I think of things like that is, now I love. Personally, I love having conversations. I've loved having conversations since I was a very little kid. I've not always been a great conversationalist, and sometimes I'm not even now. But one thing I've always loved, Peter, and I'm so glad your mother kind of prompted this for you, is I've loved having conversations with people older than me, people more experienced than me, because in my mind, much like you, I was never much of a reader, but much like you, I like to learn. I like to find out things. And I look at people, I look at every individual as kind of a book. Each of them has their stories. Each of them has all these different things that have happened in their life, all these different chapters, right? Every individual, in my mind, is a book. It's just not something that you read, but you can interact and learn from it.
Exactly. And I fully agree, Wilk. And I guess if I reflect back, like Steve Jobs says, your life only makes sense of the dots when you join them backwards.
Mm-hmm.
What my mother taught me or introduced me to, along with my uncle, was that conversations are more about listening than talking, because I made the mistake of thinking that talking to people meant talking, right? What I learned was that talking to people isn't about talking to them. Talking with people is about listening to them.
Right.
And then I found I began to find that I was learning more as much from asking questions and listening to the answers than I was from my books. The books were still important in my life and still are, but I've learned as much from listening to answers people give me and learning about them as I do from books. It's like that. There's two different ways of learning, and that, if you like, was the beginning of the journey. And what's interesting now is that I find myself teaching people to do that. And the interesting thing as an introvert is that a lot of the people that I'm coaching and meeting in workshops are introverts just like me.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm if I wasn't introverted, I couldn't really understand how they were feeling, because I'm not an extrovert.
Right.
If you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find extroverts a bit challenging sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably more of an extrovert. Maybe not at this stage in my life, Peter, but for much of my life, I loved getting out and meeting people and doing different things. But that's a story for another time. I really want to take this time to learn about how you transitioned this introverted child into this collaborative, basically teaching people how to collaborate with those who they, I mean, you made a living out of it, right? I mean, you went on to have a great career in selling.
Yeah. Well, I've made a living out of it for the last 20 years, and I've supported a wife and 5 children, a cat and a dog. Right.
Yeah. So
those. So you go.
Yeah. So take that and transition that into your professional life. So you went off, you went to college, and then you had to learn to sell. But often people who are introverted or really don't like talking to people. You like listening, but you don't like talking to people. Most salesmen I know are all about the talking, right? They just want to get out there and talk. They want to sell their wares, and they're gonna say everything they have to say to make that happen. You took a different approach.
Yeah, I did, not straight away though. I wasn't that smart. The next big piece of that puzzle was I did go to college. I did do a business degree. I joined IBM, and at the time IBM were offering a year of sales training to new recruits. I knew nothing about computers, but I thought, look, a year of sales training can't do me wrong. I joined IBM. I started selling straight away. I was given a senior mentor to work with, and both of us had a successful sales career. But what happened, Wilk, was that during that sales training, I found the more I followed selling techniques, the less I sold, and the more fake I felt. Right? I felt fake, and I felt like it's highly contrived, highly constructed. I noticed as soon as I started selling, people stopped buying from me, and I was in a real twist, if you like. I was in a real really confused. And surely, if this is IBM, not that I'm dissing IBM at all, it's an awesome organization, but the sales methodology I was taught wasn't working. And I thought, what if I wonder what does work? And I thought, I tried a couple of things, and I thought, well, I wonder whether the opposite of selling works. And I tried doing the opposite, which was basically what I was doing before I was taught to sell, right? Which was rather than trying to close sales, all I was attempting to do was open up relationships, right? And rather than ask a lot of complicated, structured questions, all I was doing was just asking questions and about being curious about the answers. And rather than having a big funnel that I was funneling people down into, I was attempting to talk to less people because I was so introverted, that making sure the people I did speak to, we could potentially have something of value to share with each other.
Yeah.
And that started that process of me developing this collaborative approach. I went back to college and did a master's in communication to learn it from an academic perspective, because I love learning, reading the academic life. And I began consulting in the space initially here in Australia to big corporates and to individuals. And then because it was successful here in Australia, I started getting invited to different parts of the world, initially into Asia, like into Japan and China and Malaysia and India, and then into the UK, then into the US, because I found this same approach was working everywhere in the world. Because when you're Australian, you think, who's little old me from Australia teaching somebody in the US in particular? Because we like Australians almost like worship the US, right?
Right.
Who's little old me to teach these guys? And I remember the first program workshop I ran. I was in New York City, the first place I worked outside of Australia. And I remember waking up in the hotel room and thinking, who the hell am I to be talking to these Americans about this? Surely they're bigger, smarter, brighter than me.
Right? So now you're struggling with like an imposter syndrome. And what am I even doing here?
Yeah, what have I been doing here? Exactly. And fortunately, it worked. I developed the workshop into a philosophy. That philosophy became a book. And I called it Collabradabra because I was sitting in the airport lounge coming back one night because my flight had been delayed. And I thought, there's real magic in this collaboration. I was just reflecting on magic and having a couple of glasses of wine. I thought magic, abracadabra, collabradabra. Yeah, that's it. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I'm not sure if the wine or it was me or the fact I was so tired.
Either way, it's a beautiful play on words. No,
different. And it worked well. And now, as we were sharing before the podcast, the world's becoming more polarized.
Right.
And it's pretty well accepted that the reason for that, a lot of the reason for that is we spend more time on social media. I mean, Apple have researched that they say that the average length of phone calls has decreased every year since 2006. So the number of phone calls is reducing and the length of the phone calls are decreasing, so that they're decreasing to less than 60 seconds. And 80% of the time people spend on their mobile devices is on social media platforms. Social media platforms use algorithms that feed your biases. Like if I like red, I'm going to get more red, and the blue guys are bad. If I like blue, the blue guys are great, the red guys are bad. If I like high's great. If I'm like low's no matter what you are, black, white, tall, short, red, blue, whatever you are, you're going to get fed more of that, and we get more polarized.
Is that right? And that's yeah. So that's one of the big problems, right, Peter? Is people they see this toxicity and then it almost becomes addictive. So they get addicted a little bit. They get addicted to the polarization. They get addicted to the toxicity. They see it more. The algorithms show them more, and they become more polarized than they were before, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the ultimate goal, in every human endeavor is to be happy. And I guess the myth in the polarization is that I'll be happier when I'm more polarized. I'll be happier when I'm more a fisherman and not a hunter. I'm more a swimmer and not a runner. I'm more a mountain climber than whatever the more of is. I'll be happier then. But the really interesting thing you can look at, as I have studied successful societies like Eleanor Ostrom has, the last female to win a Nobel Prize for economics. You look at successful teams and the work of people like James Jarecki, successful romantic relationships from research from people like John Gottman, and successful individuals who collaborate with themselves, which is a really interesting idea. The happiness comes from the quality of your relationships, not the quality of how polarized you can be. And the reason why there's more anxiety, and I mean, anxiety is increasing, self-reported happiness is falling as polarity increases. Mm-hmm. And it's no coincidence, Wilk, that those things are happening together, because as we get more polarized, we get more anxious, we get more unhappy, and we think, well, the answer is to be more polarized, to dig deeper into the same hole. And fortunately, collaboration, particularly in my sense, because I'm teaching a collaborative way to have a conversation, because every society or team is built on a series of conversations. Even a romantic relationship is built on a series of conversations.
Absolutely right.
And that's why I'm on this mission. And as an introvert, which is where we started this conversation, it's even more important because introverts tend to have less conversations, right?
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
And one of the big problems, Peter, with being introverted is, well, exactly what you mentioned, social media. People spend most of their time now in front of a screen.
Yeah.
And that screen, whether it be that little screen that's in your hand, your handheld screen, or a computer or whatever, people aren't just doing like you did as a child, Peter, and sitting in their room reading books. People are online. People are online feeding themselves all the garbage that they see, whether it be videos on whatever platform, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, or social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those different things, right? They can be used for good, but there is a lot of bad in there, and we've just seen recent studies too, where they're saying children under 13 on social media, it's just this toxic thing, and they're just too young to understand and absorb all that information that's coming at them. There's so much misinformation online. It's ugly, and it's an ugly way to live. But the way we get out of it, and the reason that I was so excited to talk to you today, and I've talked to other people who are really about asking questions, having the conversations. My good friends Michael Ashford from the Follow Up Question podcast, and then Moni Guzman, who talks about asking questions and having those curious conversations, and she's part of Braver Angels, who's all about having those collaborative conversations and having those bridge the divide moments. It's so important that people put down their phones, they put down social media, they quit with all the garbage that they find online, and actually ask those questions, just like you're talking about, Peter. Ask those questions. Have those conversations with people. Now, Zoom is a beautiful thing. Obviously, if it wasn't for Zoom, the chances are you and I probably wouldn't have this conversation right now. Maybe. I mean, I know you're in the States. I very seldom get to Australia, but you're in the States quite often. There might be a chance we'd have this conversation.
Yeah.
But probably not likely. So computers can be used for a beautiful conversation, but it's still having that in-person bonding moment, talking face to face. People need to get out and have those conversations.
Absolutely, and I'm not like a Luddite that's anti-technology at all. There's a lot of really useful outcomes. Even, I mean, I began podcast guesting last year, and I learned all about cameras and microphones and lights, etc., all through like watching YouTube and learning from people that were offering advice and information for free, which is awesome. And I learn a lot, and I engage a lot with social media to learn and to get into different perspectives. So I'm not anti. I'm not saying like don't ever engage with social media. There's a lot of good things you can learn and get exposed to, which is great. What I'm recommending is that we have more person-to-person conversations, and we have conversations not just with people that think like us, but deliberately have conversations with people that don't think like us. Because the magic that happens in the collaboration happens when you both arrive at a place you couldn't do alone.
Yeah.
If you think politically, like for example in Congress, the best solutions are going to be when both sides of the House get together and arrive at an outcome that's better for all Americans, the same as it would be here. It's not one side driving one line and the other side driving the other. In a romantic relationship or a marriage, it's about both of you getting together in a loving environment and creating a family or creating an environment that you couldn't do alone. I mean, the benefits of the collaboration are hugely bigger than you can by yourself, or hugely bigger than you can by being in an echo chamber of hearing the same views just being reinforced.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So the next question becomes, well, how do you do that? I mean, how do you? That was the question I asked myself. Well, if that's the case, if it's the opposite of selling, and I'm teaching this, and I had the good fortune of being able to learn it in live workshops, because I was running workshops developing these techniques and using them live with people in the room, like running role plays and running scenarios with people, and like having almost like a live laboratory, if you like, of real people to test these things out on. So I didn't develop it all in my mind. It wasn't like I sat down and wrote it all out and, oh, this is it. I wasn't that sort of genius. Most of what I've learned from other people. But what do they say? If you've seen further, it's by standing on shoulders of giants. And every person I've worked with has been a giant in that respect. So the question I was like, well, how do I do this? And I had the good fortune, and still do. I mean, I mentioned before we came online that I ran a workshop this morning for some guys on the East Coast. And I get a chance to see it working all the time. So I guess that's the why to is really important. Have more of these conversations. Who to is have conversations, whether you're talking to clients or customers or partners or friends or business associates, or you're in a sporting group. Have more conversations with people who don't think like you, or have conversations with people that you're either afraid to talk to, or that you don't like, or that you wouldn't normally talk to, and engage them, because you'll find that the universe works in a mysterious way, and you'll find that each person you talk to will make a suggestion to you that will demonstrably improve your life, but you won't know where that comes from. Just one last example of that. I do a lot of storytelling. I talk, telling my story at storytelling events. I was at an event last year with another speaker who was there. And after I spoke, he suggested, you should podcast. I said, I don't want to run a podcast. He said, no, you should podcast guests. He introduced me to a podcast service, and that's how I got to meet you, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It was a total stranger. And I was just talking to him. I was asking him questions and listening to the answers. And he changed my life. So you don't know where it's going to come from. You never know that the universe is going to drop those little pieces of gold in your honeypot, and you'll have no idea where it will always surprise you where it comes from. I've had conversations with people on aircraft, flying to different destinations, learning from them, like getting advice, learning from them, asking the questions and listening to the answers.
Yep.
With people you wouldn't normally talk to.
You wouldn't normally meet, just like I was talking about. You and I, we would probably not. We don't run in the same circles. Yeah. We probably would have never met had it not been for that podcast service. So I'm so incredibly grateful for that. Just because like I said, I love having these conversations, Peter. And so let's get to the meat of. I mean, we could this could go on all day long, I'm sure, but the meat of what we're here to talk about is the concept of a collaborative conversation. So what is I guess, what are the keys? What makes up? What are the components of a collaborative conversation?
Okay, that's a great question. There's and I'll answer it by saying there's 3 key intentions that you need to embrace, and then there's 6 moments that matter in the conversation. I'll start with the intentions, and these are intentions that drive your behaviour. You make them quite obvious. You're not trying to hide these from people. The first intention is clearly that we want to collaborate. Like I'll be talking to you and say, like we did when we started, hey, Wilk, how can we work together to create a great experience for the listeners, to give them value, make this time worthwhile. So one, you're intending to collaborate and walk as far away from selling as you can. The second is that you need to decide, take the courage to be authentic. As Brene Brown said, being authentic is being courageous enough to tell the story of who you are with your whole heart. So you're being authentic. You're not faking it until you make it. You're not pretending to be anybody that you're not. You are a genuine version of you, and that will create and develop a better relationship. And the third one is being optimistic about the outcomes you can achieve together, because all the good research suggests from people like Martin Seligman and onwards that the more optimistic you are in how you're talking with somebody, the more likely they are to be influenced by you and by the collaboration that you're developing. I don't mean wild Pollyanna walk through the minefield and not wanting to get blown up. I just mean being optimistic about the potential outcomes you can achieve together, because you can achieve quite extraordinary things with people. I have in my coaching practice In my working practice, I've seen people achieve extraordinary things that they didn't think that they were capable of. And that magic is all around you. So there are three intentions that you start with, and they're very deliberate intentions that you think about before the conversation takes place. Then there's the first moment that matters. And the first moment that I have found matters most to begin with is before the conversation takes place. You have a deliberate goal around changing something of benefit in the other person's life or business or environment. And that's going to be changing how they're thinking, changing how they're feeling, or changing what they're doing. So you're getting very deliberate. And if you don't know what that is, the goal of the conversation is going to be to uncover the goal, to work out how you can leave them better off. And you're leaving them better off one conversation at a time, which leaves the relationship keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
For sure.
So the doing one's easy. You're going to help them change what they're doing. The thinking one, maybe give them a fresh perspective, a different way of thinking, introduce new information. If you're an expert in something, it's likely you know more than the people that you're talking to, not because that you're a genius, that you've spent more time specializing in that one particular space. I was working with some guys recently that work for a huge, like a global photocopier company. And I thought, what's interesting about photocopiers? I thought, wow, that's pretty boring, right? To be frank. From my perspective. But when I talked to these guys, that they were interested in, they regarded themselves as managing documents and managing information and helping people get the information they need in the place they need it with document management and document leadership. I thought, wow, I didn't think of it like that. So they were changing how people were thinking about photocopiers, right? Which I thought was an example of changing how you think, right? So you start that, then you think, okay, then the second moment comes when you get face-to-face with the person. You're actually meeting them. There's a lot written about building rapport and all the fake things you can do, like matching them and mirroring and all that sort of stuff, right? Which is part of sales technology, which doesn't work because you're not being authentic. What we find works best in terms of the first moment that you begin that face-to-face piece is you listen until you disappear.
Say that again.
You listen until you disappear.
Listen until you disappear. You gotta explain that one to me.
I thought it might get you between the eyeballs. What most people are doing when they first start talking to somebody, particularly if there's stakes involved, high stakes involved in the conversation, is all their attention is on themselves and all they're thinking about is achieving what they want to achieve with this person or through this person, right? Which gets back to having an intent to sell something to them, sell an idea to them. What you're doing initially is you are disappearing. You are getting very present, right? You're getting very present in your own bones. So you know where you are. You can feel where you are. You can sense where you are. Then you give all of that presence to the person you're talking to. That's why I believe presence is called presence, because it's the greatest gift you can give to anybody is your presence. And it's pretty rare that you'll be with someone that gives you their full presence or their full attention. And I like to say, listen until you disappear. Give all your attention to them. And the other, I guess, mechanism this works on, which sounds a little strange too, but I'm a strange guy with strange ideas, right? Is that your subconscious is doing most of the communicating, not your conscious. The more you're in your conscious mind, the less you'll communicate. I'll ask you, the last time you had a conversation with someone, how many words did you deliberately use? And the answer will be none. They all came from your subconscious or your unconscious mind. Even the best robots can't construct a sentence like humans can because we're doing it subconsciously. We're getting a random collection of words in our vocabulary, of which is about 2,000 or so that each of us know. We're assembling them together in a sequence called a sentence to construct meaning with someone we've just met. Now, no, you can't do that consciously. You've got to do it subconsciously. So when you give all of your presence to somebody else, you listen until you disappear. You allow your subconscious to do the communicating, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating. I've never heard of it that way, but that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I've spent 20 years studying this, Will. I didn't arrive at this yesterday. This is like a lot of studying, a lot of learning, a lot of working with a lot of people in different parts of the world.
Well, and it makes perfect sense, Peter. I mean that. Yeah, I mean once you tune yourself out, tune that other person in, you're going to get a lot further. You're going to get a lot more from it.
Yeah, and I'll ask you and ask the listeners next time you have a conversation with someone, particularly someone close to you, just listen until you disappear. Give them all of your attention, and watch how the relationship changes. It changes from the beginning. Like that.
I think that in and of itself is worth a listen right now to this, because I mean, I think if more people just use that single technique, they would get a lot further in their conversations, right?
Yeah, and if you just take one thing that I'm suggesting and do that, each thing I'm suggesting will make a big difference. When you package them all together, extraordinary change is possible with people through relationships with them, because that's when the magic of the collaboration happens. And you're also teaching that person. You're teaching the person that you're with and that you're talking to the benefits of the approach that you're using. Because if both people are collaborating with the same spirit, you get on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
You start really amping up. Yeah. Now, so that's moment number 2. You've disappeared, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not there anymore, Will.
Right. I'm all here. I'm all on you, Peter. I am focused and just, this is incredible. So go with number 3.
Go with number 3 is taking the lead. Now, this is not dominating or leading from a dominating piece. It's taking the lead in terms of developing followership. Because I don't like the idea of leadership. What I like the idea of is generating followership, generating ideas and relationships and concepts and businesses and families where people want to follow you, right? Now, you take the lead by really answering 4 primary questions the person that you're talking to has in their mind. And that is, why is this conversation taking place? Like, from my perspective, or from our joint collaborative perspective, what sort of outcome are we after? Like, where is this going to land? How do you recommend the conversation structured? And finally, so what? Like, so what's going to be next? How does this conversation translate or step us into somewhere better for both of us, particularly for me if I'm doing the listening. So so after you've done the relating part at the beginning, that might last a couple of seconds, or it might last 20 minutes. I have some people that want to talk about Patrick Mahomes for 20 minutes before we start talking, right? They'll give you a lot about football, which is great, and that's their way of easing into the other people want to get straight to business. So you're saying something like, "Oh, look, g'day, Will. Thanks for the conversation we're having today. Look, the reason we're getting together today is we're looking at ways of we both share the goal of helping people improve their lives, commercially and domestically and relationship wise, having better conversations. And by the end of our conversation, we can arrive at ways where we can potentially work together to make that happen." How I thought we could do that is I'll share some. I'll explore what your understanding of collaboration and conversations are. I'll give you my perspective, and then at the end we can agree on whether there's a way forward or not. How does that sound? Because that sounds great, right? And all I'm doing is setting up the conversation and giving it some structure. I'm not imposing it on you. I'm not telling you this is how it's going to go. I'm not opening up a PowerPoint deck. I'm just giving it some structure by answering those questions. And right. I'm not telling you. I'm saying, how does that sound? So you can put your fingerprints on it too. You can move those bits around. I'm happy as long as there's structure, right? Because too many conversations start without structure because both people are scared of the truth, right?
Right.
Jack Nicholson said, "You can't handle the truth." Right? I think that was Jack Nicholson.
A Few Good Men. It was a great movie.
You go.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think in conversations, especially with people you don't know, right? People are very hesitant. They've got their guard up. They don't know what to expect. So it makes a lot of sense. Help structure that conversation in a way that they know that you are going to be open to what they say. They will then open up to what you're going to say. And that's a great way to collaborate.
It is a great way to start, and it's all about them, and you all it's useful to always have an exit clause. Always have the emergency hatch available. Always be sitting in the exit row. Right? So you're not ever pressuring them to arrive at an outcome, because, like I just said, hey, we can see whether it's worth pursuing or not. Because what you're looking to do is you're doing more sorting than selling. You're sorting through the conversations and sorting through those opportunities to see where the biggest opportunities are, where we're both going to be better off, because there could be some conversation where that won't happen, right? Ideally, if you take the anti-funnel approach, which I do, I'm more into pipes than funnels. I'm more likely to be talking to somebody I can give value to, more likely than not. But sometimes I'm not.
Sure.
And sometimes it's not possible. I'm happy to exit. I'm not pressuring them, because I'm all about them achieving their outcome, right? Me achieving mine, them achieving theirs, and creating something better, which is the magic part. Mm-hmm. So what are we up to moment number 3? That's the leading part. We could be like 1 minute in, we could be half an hour in at that stage. Usually it's earlier in the conversation. The next part wasn't my idea entirely. I actually stole the initial idea from Stephen Covey, when he said, seek first to understand before seeking to be understood, in his 7 habits.
Yes.
Because the next part is then I get curious about how Wilk's thinking about this, or how the person I'm talking to is thinking about this. Because I can't collaborate with you if I don't know where you are now. If I'm looking at changing how you're thinking, how you're feeling, or what you're doing, I can't do any of those without knowing where you are now. So where are you now, and where could be a more beneficial way to be thinking, feeling, or doing, right? So I'm interested in how you make decisions about that.
You have to know what have to know what they're doing. You have to know who they are and what makes them tick, or you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. What makes them tick, how they're thinking, what they're doing, and most importantly, how they're feeling. Because ultimately people are only doing things to feel a different way. Everything, the cars you buy, the clothes you have, the people you see, the sports you play, it's because you want a happy outcome, right?
Yep.
You believe that's going to make you happier, and that's a feeling. That's not a thought. I mean, happiness is a feeling, not a state, not a thought. So you're interested in how they make decisions about this, like whatever it is, like whether it's kids, wives, husbands, partners, business partners, customers. And you really want to know four things. You want to be asked. I'm not going to tell you the questions, but I don't like prescriptive questions. I'm looking at what things you need to understand. The first thing you got to understand is that every decision involves a decision-making value. Like that, there's something that person values in a hierarchy of values that they're using to make decisions. Sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously. Like, how do you buy a car? How do you buy shoes? How do you engage with a new gym? How do you decide where to go on holidays? You've got values or criteria. I like to call them values because they're a value to you. You need to understand. Ask questions about, okay, well, what's most important to you when you go on holiday?
Right.
And you would give me some answers. You would tell me some things are important to you. Right.
Yep.
And that's the surface level. Then I'm thinking, okay, what order are they in? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to help them get where they want to be if you understand how they make their decisions, if you understand what's important to them.
Yeah. Like I'm really curious. What is it about Donald Trump that you support? I'm really curious about that. Like, what are the most important things, if that's the case?
Yeah.
What criteria are you using to choose a president? If I'm talking politically, or what criteria do you use to choose a holiday, or a partner, or a friend, or a hobby, whatever, a fishing rod, whatever it might be? There's the criteria. Okay, I'm curious about what order they're in. Because if you're someone really introverted like me, you're likely to put the most important one last. And if you're really extroverted, like potentially you are, Will, you have the most important thing first, right? That's going to be in headlights.
Yep.
And then I'm going to be curious. Okay, so that's what they are. What order? And the last two are the money areas. What does that mean to you, Will? Like, say, for example, you're going on a holiday and you say, I like being in the mountains, right? And see, when I hear mountains, right, I think neurolinguistically, I picture a mountain for me. Now, I grew up in Australia, and mountains are hills, right? We haven't got real mountains in this country.
Right.
So what's a mountain to you? I mean, you could be, I've had the good fortune to be in Bhutan, like in the Himalayas.
Wow.
Right? They're real mountains, right? They're real mountains, right?
Sure.
And if you're Bhutanese, that's a mountain. If you're an Australian, like hills or mountains, you think, what does that mean to you? When you say value for money, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What is value? I'm just curious. What does it mean? You're not interrogate. You're curious.
Yeah.
Like I like saying ABC. ABC.
Yeah.
Always be collaborating, and ABC. Always be curious. Just be really curious and ask tons of questions.
Well, just like I said when I mentioned my friends, Michael Ashford, and his big thing is keep asking questions. You've got to ask those questions, and then Monica, hers is be genuinely curious. Be genuinely curious about the person that you're speaking to.
So moment 5 is when you've fully explored those decisions, how they make decisions, and you're going to make a recommendation to them. You're going to make a suggestion to them or a recommendation. That's moment 5. And that's going to either be consistent or inconsistent with what they've just said. Ideally, it's consistent, or potentially it's inconsistent because you're going to recommend something to them that's going to achieve their goals that's inconsistent with their values. Like you might, for example, introduce a Tesla to them when they drive Toyotas because it's a better way of them achieving their environmental objectives potentially.
Sure.
Like you might make a recommendation that's inconsistent, and you give them reasons why that might be a more useful approach. And finally, you're agreeing. You make the recommendation. This is moment 6. You're making the recommendation. You're going to get a yes, no, or a maybe. Yes is a great answer. No is a better answer still, because too often in these conversations we pretend to say no by saying yes. We pretend it's a yes, but it's really a no. And you want the no's on the table. You want to give them lots of permission, make it really easy for them to say no. Because then you can spend time in collaborative conversations in relationships where you both can achieve a better outcome, or maybe it's a maybe. It's a maybe. What I talk through is a simple negotiating tool that translates that maybe into a yes that's worth having for both of you. And there are 6 moments, and you might not get through all 6 moments in one conversation. You might just get to moment 3 and then come back for moment 4, 5, and 6. And if the conversation's of value, people will want to talk to you again.
Right.
If it works, they'll want to talk to you again. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is I what I really like about this method, the 6 moments, Peter, and the things that you're talking about is you're going into that conversation, but the vast majority, I mean, all the way up the first 4, the big things are that fact finding mission, right? You are genuinely curious. You're getting everything you need to know out of the person you're having the conversation with so that you can provide value to them in that conversation. Because like you said earlier, you are going into this genuinely wanting to provide some value. You're not just going into this just to talk. You're going in there to get value and give value on an equal footing, and that fact finding mission that is so important.
If I can just clarify that, I'm more into feeling finding than fact finding.
Well, feeling finding, okay.
I want to understand how they feel, and I want them. If you look at the exit research, like I often do with people in commercial relationships, if you ask them, why did you engage Wilk? Why did you engage with this person in this commercial situation? The number one answer that comes out, because they uniquely understood my needs and my environment. They understood me, right? So you're looking for them to feel understood. And by the way, I like to be selfishly collaborative. The reason I love this approach so much is I get much more of what I want when you get what you want. Right.
That's a great way to think about it, Peter. That's an incredible way to think about it, because again, without these conversations, and like you said, like we talked about earlier in our conversation, too many people just aren't talking to each other anymore. They allow their differences to keep them apart. They are not talking. They are not seeking to understand the other side. They shut down when they know that other side thinks differently than they do, and it's just it makes for a very rough world if we're not having those conversations anymore. I just want you to know that it's so important what you're doing, Peter, and the DTH listeners can obviously go to peteranthonyconsulting.com, learn more about, find the book, Collabradabra, The Magic of Collaborative Conversations. Peter Anthony, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
Friends, be sure to check out the show notes for this episode at deratethehate.com to learn more about and get in contact with Peter Anthony. Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the Derate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms, or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.